Welcome. You ever feel that, that gap, that little nagging sense of distance between the person you are right now and the incredible person you just know you could be? I'm pretty sure we all know that feeling well. And, it's often described like this, as this huge, intimidating canyon. It's like our potential is way over there on the other side, looking great, and we're just stuck over here trying to figure out how in the world we're supposed to build a bridge to get there. But here's the kicker. The big idea we're going to tear apart today. What if that whole gap, that entire canyon, what if it's not even real? What if it's just an illusion that we've built inside our own minds? Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to expose this illusion of the gap for what it is. Then, we'll totally bust the myth that potential is some far-off destination. We're going to get real about why we cling to this idea so much, and then we'll flip to the reality that performance is actually everything. And finally, we'll get into how potential is really built. All right, first up, the illusion of the gap. The main idea here is that this gap we feel so strongly, it's not a real place. It's more like a psychological stall, like we're hitting the pause button on ourselves. Because here's the simple, hard truth. There is no gap. There's only right now, this moment. And in this moment, you only have one choice, to act or not to act. That's it. That's the entire game. So that leads us right into our second section, and maybe the biggest myth we've got to bust, this whole idea that potential is a destination. The classic trap of someday I'll get there. This is the old way of thinking, right? We see potential as this promise of a future, better version of ourselves. Or, and I love this analogy, it's like a savings account full of talent that we tell ourselves we're not allowed to touch yet. I'll tap into it someday. But what if we just flip that on its head? Let's reframe it. Potential is not a promise, it's a hypothesis. It's just an untested idea. And your performance? Well, that's the experiment. It's the test you run right here, right now, to see if your hypothesis is actually true. Think about it like this. You aren't potentially a writer. You literally are a writer the moment you sit down and write. You're a painter the moment you paint. Your identity isn't waiting for you in the future. It's being forged by what you do in the present. Okay, but that brings up a really important question, doesn't it? If this gap is just an illusion, why do we hold on to it so tight? Well, that's what we're tackling in Section 3. And honestly, it has a lot to do with comfort. See, the truth is, this gap is basically an ego defense mechanism. It's a super comfortable excuse for why we haven't succeeded yet. It keeps our potential self safe up on a pedestal, all perfect and shiny and flawless, precisely because it's never actually been tested. It lets us avoid the messy, uncomfortable reality of actually trying, and maybe, just maybe, failing. And this really breaks down that core conflict, doesn't it? Potential is safe, it's untested, it lives in your imagination, where it can be limitless. But performance? Performance is messy. It has to answer to reality. It's a narrow, specific action, and it's totally subject to failure. One is a nice, comfortable future promise. The other is a cold, hard, present truth. All right, so this is where things get really interesting. Section 4, the reality. Performance is everything. So we can forget about bridging some imaginary gap. We're going to talk about how to just collapse that distance entirely. So let's redefine potential. Forget what you thought. Potential is not a thing you have. It's a rate you can measure. It's the rate at which you can turn what you intend to do into something you actually do. It's the rate at which you can push through boredom and doubt and delay without giving up. And the physics analogy here is just perfect. Think about a rock at the top of a hill. It has all this potential energy, but it's completely useless until it starts rolling. The moment it moves, that's kinetic energy, the energy of motion. Your action, that's the trigger. That's what makes your potential real. So that huge, scary canyon we talked about, what is it really? It's nothing more than our own delay in starting. It's just the friction we feel right before we take that first step. That's all it is. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, Section 5, how potential is really built. And here's the big secret. We have this thing completely backwards. Potential doesn't come first. It doesn't give you permission to act. Potential actually emerges from the effort itself. It's built in this 3-part cycle. First, you have to collide with resistance. You don't find your limits by thinking about them, you find them by doing. Second, you have to embrace repetition, because potential is fragile. It just collapses without practice. And third, you have to practice discipline.
which is really just the simple skill of keeping the promises you make to yourself.
So you gotta let go of this idea that there's some hidden, true you in there waiting to be discovered. There's not. There is only the self that you practice being every single day, the self that you rehearse with your actions. And this all builds to a really powerful final thought. Stop thinking of performance as some big, scary test that you might fail. Instead, start seeing it for what it is, a mirror you stand in front of. Because let's be honest, mirrors don't lie, do they? They don't show you the person you meant to be. They don't reflect the person you have the potential to be. They reflect the person you have repeatedly, through all your daily choices, chosen to become. So I'm going to leave you with this question. That mirror is in front of you right now, this very moment. What identity are your actions, your small choices, reinforcing today?